We're going to go ahead and start talking about independent and dependent variables. And there are two things you need to know. One, you need to know what dependent and independent variable are. And two, you need to remember the equation for a linear function, which was y equals mx plus b. So let's take a look at example 1. Jennifer started with $50 in her checking account. The amount of money she has in her account after m weeks is represented by the function t equals 50 plus 10m. What is the dependent variable? What is the independent variable? So let's actually talk about the second thing that I said you needed to know, and that was the linear function y equals mx plus b. 100% of the time, every time you see one of these questions that talks about an independent or a dependent variable, you want to take the function that is given to you and line it up with y equals mx plus b. So in this particular example, I'm going to line my t up with y, t equals y equals, and you guys know in y equals mx plus b, your mx has the coefficient with the variable, so this is actually flip-flopped on us, but that's okay. And then you know that your b is always your lone little constant. So this is actually y equals b plus mx, and it's the same exact thing. Be prepared to see both of them. Alright, but we really want to remember y equals mx plus b. The first thing that I said you had to remember was that you needed to remember your vocabulary. We have to know what an independent and a dependent variable are. So an independent variable is your x value. So what I like to do is I like to take whatever I have lined up with x in y equals mx plus b, and I like to box it. Sometimes I highlight, but I'm going to use different colors here to represent the both of them. The dependent is your y value, so I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to box in whatever is lined up with my y value, because now it's so much more easier for me to answer the question. So the question says, what is the dependent variable? Well, dependent variable we said was the y value. Well, what letter is matched up with y? Well, in this particular example, you would say t, and the t represents the amount of money that Jennifer has in her account. What is the independent variable? Well, we know independent is x. Well, what was matched up or lined up with the letter x? And it was the letter m. And in this case, it represents the number of weeks. Example 2. A daycare charges $75 for an enrollment fee plus $100 a week. The equation C equals 100W plus 75 represents the cost of using the daycare center, where W represents the amount of weeks. What is the dependent variable? What is the independent variable? So I'm going to look in this particular example, and I'm going to go, all right, they give us the function C equals 100W plus 75. And the first thing that I said you needed to know earlier was y equals mx plus b. So I'm actually going to rewrite everything, and I'm going to line it up. And because we're only talking about dependent and independent variables today, I'm going to go ahead and I'm only going to box in the information that I need to know. I need to know what my y is, and I need to know what my x is. So from here, it's so much more easier for me to answer the question. What is the dependent variable? Dependent your y. Well, in this particular case, we can't say y, but they do give us c, and we know that that is going to be the cost. What is the independent variable? Well, we know that the independent variable is letter x. Well, what is being replaced with x in this example? And it is w, which again actually represents the amount of weeks. Three, Liza hired a cleaning service to clean her house. To find C, the total cost of cleaning her house, she used the following formula. C equals 7.5x plus 25. What is the dependent variable in this formula? So, this is multiple choice, so this makes it kind of easy for us. So, I'm going to take the function that they gave us, and just like before, I'm going to match it up with y equals mx plus b. Now, this does not ask you for both the independent and dependent, so this is where we really have to read the question. They said, what is the dependent variable? And you need to know your vocabulary, and that the dependent variable represents your y value. So I'm going to take a look here, and it's super simple because I'm going to go, okay, what is matched up with my y value? And it is letter C. Example 4. A local electrician charges for each hour of work. The electrician charges a $30 service fee and then $25 for each hour worked. The function is y equals 25x plus 30. The independent variable of this relation is. All right, so I'm going to take y equals, I'm going to write down the function they give me, and then I'm going to rewrite it as y equals mx plus b. Sorry about that. And in this particular question, you have to read it. It says, what is the independent? Well, we know based on our vocabulary that the independent is letter X. All right, so we know that that's X there, but it doesn't give us the variables, kind of like in example 3. We actually have to know what X represents here. So this goes back to when we were talking about multiple representations, and I said, hey, what is the 25, if you have this right here, what does the $25 represent? Well, it represents $25 for each hour. And remember, when we were creating equations, we had to put the two things that meant something together. So in this particular example, we would say that that was $25 for each hour. So it's not the hourly fee, because that would be how much they're charging per hour, which was 25. Service fee, that's how much he charges at one time. Hours worked, which would be X, and then total charge would actually be your dependent. So you're left with, it's the number of hours that the electrician worked. Example 5. Joseph works as a dog walker on the weekends. He charges a flat fee of $4 to his customers, and then $2.25 for each hour. The formula he uses is y equals 2.50d plus 4. Which of the following statements is true? So, before I even bother with the question, I'm going to write my formula down. And I am going to match that up with y equals mx plus b, because doing that, it definitely allows for me to visually see what's going on here. All right, we know that the x here represents independent, something you might just want to keep in mind, and we know that the y here represents your dependent. Since that is our objective today, I would definitely keep that in mind. So the independent variable is 250. Well, if we were to match this up, x is actually matched up with x and y is matched up with y. The 250 is matched up with your slope, which we're not really talking about here. So that definitely is not true. The dependent is variable d, which actually I probably should fix this because it did not say. I guess I was thinking ahead that that was my independent, so we're going to fix that. All right, the dependent variable is d. Well, we know that the dependent variable is y, which is right here. That's not that, so that's not true, because we know that the d is lined up with the x, which is our independent. The y represents the dependent variable, which we actually just talked about. So the y is matched up with my y, which we said the y is the dependent. I'm going to question mark that. And then it says the independent variable is 4. Well, we know independent variable is x, but the x is lined up with the d, so that doesn't work. So we're definitely left with answer choice C. Example 6. Owen went to Best Buy to purchase a new laptop. He put a down payment of $200 down and will pay $75 each month until he pays it off. Use the formula P equals 200 plus 75C to identify which statement is false. All right, so the first one was true, second one is false. All right, so the original is P equals 200 plus 75C. All right, got it. Let's match it up with y equals, but this one is switched again, and that's okay. Be prepared to see stuff like that. And again, I would go and just to identify what your independent and your dependent are here, because you know that that is really our focus today. Notice that we're not really talking about the m or the b here. We've already focused on that. Today we're really focusing on that x and the y. All right, so the p is represented as the dependent. Well, the p is lined up with the y, which y is the dependent, but that's true. Remember, we're looking for something that's false. The c is represented as the independent. All right. So the c is lined up with the x, and the x is our independent, so that is true. The independent variable is 75. Well, 75 is lined up with the m, and we know that the m represents the slope, so that's a question mark. And then the c is represents the number of months. Well, remember up above it says $75. Well, if we have 75 here in our equation, well, the c has to represent something about the 75, which was each month. So technically, that is true. So the only one that is false is that the independent variable is 75.